Shalom, part 2 of
Greetings.
today's program, but it's going to be called something a little different. We're going to call it Does God Kill? And the short answer to that is yes. But
There is punishment, yes, for sin.
But
And it's kind of a continuation of something we began earlier, the Numbers 16, the rebellion of Korach. We talked about in the other video, how did they get into this situation? This is going to talk more about this dramatic ending.
well, and my perspective is a little bit different. What I want to talk about is why. Is God good all the time? There is a perspective in the world right now, which is the Old Testament is this really mean God that just kills people all the time, and then the New Testament is this really nice God who doesn't kill it because it's just Jesus, it's just love. And I struggle with this a lot to try to help people understand. So we're in Numbers, we're going to follow the Torah, but by the time we get to Numbers, we have a long history of God showing himself to his people. From the time that he makes a covenant with Abraham and he starts the faith of a new people, there is a long period of who God is and what he's doing and teaching relationship, teaching a lot of relationship. Did you read that before you came to the part where he had to kill somebody? Did you read that and understand how patient he was? Did you read what God did? We were talking about this just a few minutes ago in Exodus. Okay, so just the last chapter seems like a short time, but we're talking years, right? God's favorite thing that he did for humanity was taking his people out of Egypt. That was his favorite thing. He talks more about that than anything else that he ever did. And he's so proud of it. Look what I did for you. The situation in the Old Testament, be careful when you read when God takes care of somebody and says, you're done. It is because his patience has been stretched and stretched. And there comes a time when we have to say, no more. There comes a time, Dan and I were talking about this, how can we make this relevant to you today? This situation is a lot like what's happening in Washington, D.C., okay? I'm not going to get political, but I am going to structure it so that you understand. We're talking about leadership in this portion. Korach, the 250 princes, we're talking about leadership over a nation of 1 million people that came out of Egypt, and they're going to try to usurp the authority that God put in. They're trying to usurp that authority. Well, first of all, who's the highest authority ever? That would be God. So the highest authority is God. So they're not just trying to throw Moses out, but they're trying to tell God, you made a mistake. I should be in charge. Okay, you start stamping on that, there might be some problems. God is the highest authority. Therefore, God knows what's right. He put Moses in charge from the beginning of this whole thing. So far, God has never said, I made a mistake. And now you have people that want to usurp that authority. And they're not doing the right thing for God's people. They haven't even said anything about the people. There is no mention in here about the kindnesses of what they would do better for the people. This has nothing to do with that. This has to do all with their particular position of, I want to be in charge. That's what this is about. So before Dan starts reading, every single time God does something that doesn't look right to us, we need to question what we think about that in light of what the word says, not questioning God in his opinion. We probably have it wrong. And that's what we need to think about, because he is good all the time.
That is he is patient, long-suffering, he's merciful, as the Bible describes him, and that we can trust his character and not look at glimpses of an incident. And so here we'll look at what it says here in verse 23. Adonai answered Moshe, tell the assembly to move away from the homes of Korach, Datan, and Abiram, and those were some of the leaders that were a part of this rebellion. As you'll read earlier in the chapter, Moshe got up, went to Datan and Abiram, and the leaders of Israel followed him. There he said to the assembly, leave the tents of these wicked men. Don't touch anything that belongs to them, or you may be swept away in all their sins. So they moved away from around the area where Korach, Datan, and Abiram lived. And remember, this is the following day that Moshe, the God in his mercy, has given them time to cool off, has given them time to rethink their position, has given them time to repent. But Datan and Abiram came out and stood at the entrance of their tents, and in the Hebrew it's the concept of that they didn't just stand up, they stood defiantly with their wives, sons, and little ones. And Moshe said, here is how you will know that Adonai has sent me to do these things, and that I haven't done them out of my own ambition. If these men die a natural death, like other people, only sharing the fate common to all humanity, then Adonai has not sent me. But if Adonai does something new, if the ground opens up and swallows them with everything they own, they go down alive into Sheol, then you will understand that these men had contempt, not for Moses, not for Aaron, but for Adonai and his word.
It's a little different than when we read the newspaper clippings that say, the person didn't like what I was doing, therefore we either killed them, or that person ended up, I didn't like them, and therefore that person committed suicide while shooting themselves, to get them out of the picture. This isn't really like that. Moses was doing it the right way. If you die a natural, this has nothing to do with him pulling a trigger or him doing anything in secret like we have with current situations with people who don't like other people. This was very clean, very clear. Yeah. God will do it. Otherwise, if I'm wrong, I will take that responsibility. So
Korach, Datan, and Abiram, they died, their families die, and these 250 leaders, princes die. Well, isn't that mean?
Right.
How mean?
How mean? What? A mean God. How is that possible? Well, here's something to think about. So if you put a category of Moses and Aaron, what have they done so far for the people? They've been falling on their face for the people. They've been the high priest. They've been the ones in charge of forgiving the sins of the nation, doing all of the right sacrifices and the things that God has asked them to do. Moses has been on his face multiple times. He was up on Mount Sinai fasting 3 times, by the way, 40 days. Not just one time 40 days. But 3 times he was up there on the mountain doing these things for people and being on his face constantly before the Lord, saying, okay, let's forgive whatever it is we need to do. And so what have they been doing? They've been taking care of the people. They've been shepherding the people. Korach, on the other hand, all he's worried about is his authority. And he's like, do you remember the story of Lucifer? Right? So Lucifer's up there and he says, I want to be God. And he starts tail wagging and seeing how many of these beings he can take with him when he's thrown out. Do you realize that this is exactly the same thing in human form as that? Korach is the one who now says, I want to be in charge, and I'm going to tail wag and see, now I've got 250 princes. Oh, and I've got the tribe of Reuben. Oh, and I've got the uppers from the tribe of Judah. I've got all these people that are coming with me. Ooh, this is good. I'm in power. Did they want to do anything for anybody? So this is about usurping God's throne. This is about usurping Moses's responsibilities. This is a big deal. This isn't just like God's just going to go ahead and kill people. Oh, look at the babies that they put. No, Korach put his own children in jeopardy. If he was a good person, he would have said, okay, guys, mamas, take your little babies over there because we're the ones that have a problem right now. They didn't do that. So we go around tail wagging, blaming God for everything, and we're not looking at the injustices of the person that has said, I want to be God, and who they're willing to sacrifice to get that place. Shame on us.
Yeah, that whole idea that, God is mean, he has warned them. He has
over and
drawn them. He has pulled them. He has tried to find ways to stop them and done everything. And when they finally say, no, we are breaking out and we're doing our own thing. And he's saying, if you do that, you're going to die and your families are going to die. And then we say he's mean because they would not listen to what he was saying. But beyond that, one of the other things we talked about, in fact, just a while back, was that what would have happened? We don't know. Although we can pretty well guess, based on what we know of humanity, we pretty well know, but God knows exactly what would happen if this rebellion were to take effect. Civil war breaks out. They're in the middle of the wilderness. They have no way to go forward. They talk about going back. There's really not likely to be any success in going back to Egypt. What happens? The multitude of people end up in a bloodbath out in the desert, killing each other, trying to decide who's going to be in charge and what they're going to do next. And we would say,
it's called an infection. God is going to stop the infection. He's going to clean it out. He's going to use the hydrogen peroxide, and he's going to be cleaning out the infection before it infects the whole body. Right?
Yep. So what? One of the things that it reminded me of was the Leviticus 26. We didn't get a video out on that one, but it's another one of those where it talks about. And it's sometimes viewed this way. It talks about, God begins by saying, there's like 3 paragraphs where he says, well, if you do this, then I'll do these good things, and you'll prosper, things will go well, so on and so forth. And then just over and over again, the rest of the whole chapter is, if you don't, well, then this is going to happen. And if you still don't listen, then this is going to happen. And it's sometimes viewed, again, a distorted, upside down view is that, well, see, look, most of the chapters is referring to the things that God will do, the punishments, and say, no, understand this, that what that Leviticus 26 chapter is saying is that God is close by. It is a short distance to his blessings. He is quick to grant them. But to fall away, it's a long path to falling away. Why? Because he's merciful. And he continues to say, I'll put roadblocks in your way. I'll bring a hardship in your way. I'll allow calamity to come. I'll do all these things so that you will come back. And if you continue and continue and continue, there'll come a time where you can go no more, and that's it. And you've had it.
Right.
But in his mercy, at any point, and for Korach and the rebels, up until the tipping point, at any point, they could have turned about. They could have turned their face towards Adonai, and he would have been quick to forgive them. But there is a point at which, in his mercy of all mankind and his understanding of the big picture, there is a point where he says no more.
Right. So we want you to be introspective and recognize your portion of 2 things. 1, how you read, and 2, how you understand the character of God. So when you read the word, start with the character of God is perfect. The character of God is right. The character of God is good. If you read from that perspective, you will have less chance of calling God mean when something doesn't look right to you.
God is merciful. He is long-suffering. He loves you and me with a love we can never comprehend, and we can trust that.
So, be well.
Shalom.
Shalom.